Hey everybody, welcome to Watches with Dennis, and I've kicked this off a couple minutes early just to let people get in. Obviously, they can do the notify me, but YouTube's a little bit different than Twitch, which is what I'm more used to for live content, though not all that used to. I used to stream and still will on occasion stream pinball over on Twitch, but anyway, just in terms of topics, we're going to cover two main areas for discussion today. One is going to be about a burglary that affected Stowa, the German watch manufacturer. And then I wanted to probably spend more time actually discussing some issues involving Crown and Caliber because there was some information, alleged, allegations regarding their payment processes that widely were purged, though still available on Reddit. So we'll walk through a bit of that because I ended up deciding to do it as a live stream because I didn't want to overinflate what allegations are, even though I thought the topic itself was pretty interesting. And of course, in the environment that we're in terms of the market, or more specifically for us, the watch market, I thought it would be a relevant topic of discussion anyway. But while we're still waiting for 10:30, which was when I officially said we were going to start this shindig, let me go ahead and just do some updates. So, I've been putting out videos about once a week at this point, and I guess the last big one that I really did, of course, was the state of the collection video back in November. So some collection update information since then. I have a video of a review of the Panamanic Lunar from Glashuta Original. I don't think that was in my video, was it? I'm not sure anymore. I can't remember anymore. But anyway, that's the most recent watch that I've acquired. What I know is in the video that is no longer in my possession is I sold the Tissot PRX. And for longtime viewers will probably recall, I bought that watch because I'd never had an integrated bracelet watch before, and I wanted to see if I liked it, if I liked the style. I ended up with the original quartz Tissot PRX, not the new smaller 35 millimeter, and it wore big. Not I didn't feel it wore too big, but it was a larger watch given how the bracelet would taper on the wrist and such. So anyway, I would turn to it quite a bit actually, because if I didn't feel like setting a watch, I really only had three quartz watches at my disposal. Step Right Up, which is a novelty watch. It's hard to read the time on it, so it's not one I would normally wear for work purposes. And then the G-Shock, but I wear the G-Shock all the time because like anytime I'm outside, I pretty much have the G-Shock on. So the Tissot was sort of my go-to if I wanted to wear a nicer looking watch but did not want to set one of my mechanical watches, which I mean, that's a low hurdle because I've got so many no date mechanical watches at this point that it's usually pretty, easy pickings to go ahead and set a. In fact, the one I'm wearing in honor of our upcoming Stowa discussion is the Stowa Type B Flieger. This is a time only, hand wind only watch, but it takes like all of 30 seconds to both set it and put enough wind in it, probably less than 30, quite frankly. Usually just takes a few twists to get it going. So anyway, so that's what's been going on in terms of like my collecting and stuff. And then of course I did a video, which is for my channel has had some modest success regarding Brick Watch Company, because I saw that on Reddit getting some discussion, and I still shake my head. I haven't seen anything. I'm probably haven't searched all that much to find out, but I haven't seen anything new on that front. So I don't have anything new to report. Like if there's a response, like is there a better justification about the pricing on those? I haven't heard anything yet. So if I do, if it's enough of a news thing, maybe I'll do another item on it. But it's tough for me to revisit topics. It's kind of like when I did my biggest video I ever did on this channel was actually regarding what Timepiece Gentleman, and other than a video about some lawsuit involving merchandising that just affected one of them, I never went back to that topic because wasn't anything new really to say. I guess it's all kind of, it'd be an interesting saga to wrap up, but there's so many twists and turns, and I never watched the channel, so I only see what I see on social media, really. But speaking of seeing things on social media, this is something I did not see on social media. I actually got an email from Stowa, probably because I'm a past customer from last year, and that is regarding a burglary that just happened a couple of days ago. So according to the newsletter that they pushed out, or the email that they pushed out, I've loaded it in a web link here. They noted that sometime like Wednesday or Thursday of this current week, they had their production building broken into. Now, their production building isn't just where they build watches, that's also where they have their museum, because Stowa has been around for quite a while. They are one of the 5 original Flieger manufacturers for the German government during World War II. So obviously, you've got almost 100 years from then until now, anyway, on top of whatever they did before that time period. I'm not a Stowa expert by any means, as you can clearly tell by how I'm articulating it. So anyway, as they noted, that break-in happened, and they had a number of things stolen. Both, I guess I don't need to highlight the whole paragraph here, but current watches, watch movements, and also some of their historic watches dating all the way back to the 1930s. So they don't fully know yet exactly how much, I guess, value of the inventory is gone. They've indicated that it's probably somewhere in the upper, well, they say upper 6 figures, so under $1 million worth of product, but probably somewhere over $500,000. So it's pretty significant in terms of dollar value. And then, of course, some of these things were very historic because of the museum and the older pieces. They noted their historic marine pocket watch was one of the things that was stolen. Now, some of these things are so rare that it would probably be very difficult for thieves to unload it, and that's where I think most of the rest of this email is getting at, was talking about people asking to watch for original documents and packing for pretty much anything. But I think they're probably most inclined to try and get back the historic pieces, because I'm going to assume, again, big assumption, but I'm going to make an assumption that they are insured. And so financially, they might just need to recreate the more modern watches that they've lost. But as long as they have the tooling and such, they could still do that. The historic watches, they probably, I would again speculate, no longer have the capability to actually build those in house anymore. So I mean, I think that's the biggest loss here. As someone, I was burgled back in 2019 before I was collecting watches, and it's very, it's weird because obviously you're not there when the burglary happened. I mean, at least I wasn't. Most people aren't, and so you end up getting home, you find out, or to your business or wherever it is, you find things are smashed. You all of a sudden see everything's in disarray, because usually, at least in the case of my instance, the home invasion, the police speculated was probably under 5 minutes. They just really went through, just tore through closets, targeted electronics in my case, which would make sense because that was really the highest dollar stuff that anyone would readily identify. Remember, in my case, as a minor aside, the oddest thing was they had gone through. They stole my Xbox, which at the time Xbox One was my most modern console. So they took that. They left the 360. They also went through the games, because they stole Halo, but they didn't steal Dead Rising. So it was like they only stole the really popular Western games. It was weird. But anyway, so in this case, another thing aside from obviously the impact and their hope to have people watch out for these things and maybe help them recover some of this property is the issue regarding their Christmas sale. So every year, they have, I think, historically referred to as like an Advent calendar sale or the Christmas sale, but it's structured the same way regardless, structured like an Advent calendar. So every day they go through and they offer up a new watch. And the way they do it is, these are watches that they take to watch shows. So kind of think shop worn. So they put a new strap on them. There might be some minor scratching, very minor scratching on the watches, but they're not brand new. And that's why they basically got this kind of lightly, gently used, but not sold to people inventory. And they unload it during the Advent calendar sale. So every day they reveal a new watch. Sometimes you get some selection options, like in terms of, usually it'll be a set size and set dial configuration, but you might be able to decide if you want the movement to be automatic or manual wind or things like that. So sometimes there's some flexibility on that. But as you can see in the notice that they put out, because of this theft, they aren't able to continue the Christmas sale, not all the way through, and they only have a few days left, because the watches that were to be put up for the sale were also stolen. So it's really quite unfortunate circumstance. Again, as I noted, I have a Stowa watch on. This actually got on last year's Advent calendar sales. One of the last things they finally did a Type B Flieger, because that was one of the watches that I really wanted to get. And I'm actually, let me see if I can go ahead and load up while I'm talking the sale that I think they still have the sale listed. So normally there would be 24 days of this Christmas sale, and it used to, and they'd show them all like this shaded out before they're revealed, so you can see the current sale. A lot of the things are already sold out, which is common on these. They drop them on a different hour every day, so who like if you have to set an alarm or something will vary by the day. But you can see they're only going to do 2 more days. They're going to do the 11th and 12th, and then they're done because the rest of the watches they planned to do are stolen. So, I mean, it's really unfortunate. And just an FYI, Stowa is not one of the bigger manufacturers. They're well known historically, but they're not one of the bigger manufacturers today. So I don't know how widely that news has gone around. So I thought I'd go ahead and spend a little bit time on this live stream to discuss it, because while Stowa is one of the 5 original Flieger manufacturers, like they don't use a distribution network. You buy directly from Stowa. That's how they operate at this point. So they do a lot of sales through their website. Obviously, they're still involved in shows and stuff, but they're not like big like Laco is, where I feel like, there are a lot of options you can go to try and get a Laco watch. Stowa is just, they operate on a much smaller scale. So this is probably quite significant of an impact, depending on how many of their products they lost. Again, then they probably didn't do it in dollars. They probably did it in euros, but close to 1 million euros is perhaps for them quite a significant amount of their inventory. I don't know. It was their main production facility, however. So very, very tragic about that. So let's go ahead and shift topics to the one I think we probably need to spend a little bit more time on, or is maybe more interesting to discuss, because a burglary is, well, tragic. There's not a lot we can say about it. And that's actually Crown and Caliber. So let me take a drink here. Okay, thank you. So Crown and Caliber is a major secondhand or used watch dealer website. They are owned by Hodinkee. They used to be independent. I don't know when the acquisition happened. It's relatively recently, just over the last couple of years, I think. But when I think of online used watch places to go buy from, they're one of the big ones that come to my mind, where I'm like, oh, they're going to have a big variety of luxury watches, and they're going to have quite a few of them. So within each of the category, well, obviously it depends by brand, but I mean, it's kind of like you'd say Crown and Caliber in the same sentence that you would say Watchfinder, Watchbox. I'd probably group David SW with them. Some of the other big ones, kind of like Swiss Watch Expo and Bob's Watches, maybe you would go ahead and throw in those categories too. Obviously, there are a few other really large ones as well, but they're very big. They have significant inventory. Well, I was actually watching the Game Awards, which is a video game award show, a couple of nights ago, Thursday night, and I saw a post on the Talking Time with Tim Masso Facebook group. Now, for those who aren't familiar, Tim Masso is a host of a lot of the content on Watchbox's YouTube channel. Now, and as I mentioned, Watchbox is one of those secondhand watch dealers. So there's a Facebook group that exists with a few thousand people in it that mostly do wrist shots and some watch discussions that happen there. So this post came up, but it was the next day gone, because I was going to put together a pre-recorded video. In fact, I actually did. 4K video. I sat down yesterday where I was much more cleaned up than this and shot a whole video about it. But because everything's sort of an allegation, after I even got done editing and starting to upload it, I was like, you know what? I'm not comfortable publishing it. Let's just do it as a live stream. So that one's just archived as a not released video. Not the first time I've had a video made and decide not to release it or keep it up. But just because there wasn't enough information. Now, the post getting deleted, I don't think means anything inherently. Because Tim works for Watchbox, I imagine the moderation team for that Facebook group is not comfortable with someone throwing shade or criticizing another competitor on their platform, because it could be seen as perhaps tacitly endorsing the criticism, which, they're rivals in the sense that they're all competing for business in terms of trying to buy watches off of people and sell used watches to people. But I don't think they want to, be seen as throwing shade in that regard. And definitely not Tim. That's not his style. However, it did end up getting shared on Reddit. So this is, at least to the best of my knowledge, and it looks like it was a sort of a screen grab that was then shared on Reddit. I do think this is, as best as I recall, this is what I read on there. So again, I don't think the text is too small, but it's really short. So I'll go ahead and read it aloud in case you're on your phone or something and struggling to read my screen share. But it just says, guys, I'm having a terrible experience dealing with Crown and Caliber. I sold a watch to them a month ago. It took them approximately 2 weeks to send me my check. When I go ahead and deposit it in my account, my bank tells me that apparently the check was written from an account with not funds. I assume that means no funds. I have called them every day since, and their only response is saying that someone from customer support will reach out to me that same day. To this day, no one has contacted me. Has anyone had a similar experience with them? Okay. Now, the comments that exist here on Reddit, and we can load them if we need to, but it's mostly there's like one guy who's really critical that these allegations are being floated like they're proven because this is a share from another person's share, and the person who posted this on Reddit is not the person who originally wrote the message, and they say that in the comment section. However, the person who shared it has indicated that they did sell a watch, I guess multiple times with Crown and Caliber, and that their more recent experiences have been quite negative. Now, the comments that were on the Facebook post were different. And that's why I was originally going to make a standalone pre-recorded video on this topic, because there were other people alleging that they were struggling as well with Crown and Caliber in recent times. Things like mostly not an example of like a bounce check. It was usually things like the payments were really slow to get, or if the decision was made not to ultimately sell the watch, because the way a lot of these watch companies work is they will give you a quote, you'll send them the watch, they inspect the watch, and then they finalize the quote. And there were some claims, and I think even in this Reddit, some claims of people saying that Crown and Caliber, which often offers more money to people for their watch than some of the other ones that I named, often lowers the amount after they get the watch in and review it. And I don't know if that's common with others or not. I've only done trade-ins a few times. I've never had my quote lowered. I will say, though, when I'll use it as an example here because I think it's relevant. I did get a quote kind of from Crown and Caliber. I got one of their automated quotes. So I'll just tell this story real quick to provide some context. As a lot of longtime viewers probably know, I got rid of my Rolex Explorer 34 millimeter, and I actually traded that towards another watch. So I reached out to 4 different secondhand watch dealers because I was like, I want to do a trade. You can, if you're going to sell a watch, you'll make more money. I know, big shock. You'll make more money selling it yourself than you would selling it to a watch dealer. But if you're willing to do a trade instead of sell for cash, you can often get more value out of it because, of course, their watches that they want to trade for, they've built in a profit margin on those as well. So you can get it closer, is my point, if you're going to do a trade. Probably still best off financially if you want to just do an outright sale. But some of these watches sell fast and some of them sell slow. Like my Tudor 1926, I sold on Chrono 24 in a handful of days. My Ming Messina Lab collaboration watch sat for months, and even with me lowering the pricing, I finally traded it for what I was asking for secondhand because I couldn't move it. But some of these companies might know someone who collects those things. See how it works. So, all right. So anyway, back to the story. So the Rolex, I got quotes from Crown and Caliber, Watchfinder, Watchbox, and Joma Shop because Joma Shop I knew sells pre-owned now as well. They don't just they're mostly known as a gray market dealer, but they do sell some pre-owned. And Crown Caliber was the highest amount. They were probably, I'm trying to remember, Watchfinder was second highest. That's actually who I traded into. And I think the gap between the Watchfinder quote and the Watchfinder actually gave me a range, but they gave me the highest part of it once I turned the watch in. I think Crown and Caliber quoted about, I want to say like $750 more. And I got a quote from Watchbox, which was about $250 less than Watchfinder. It was still within Watchfinder's range though. And then Joma Shop was tiny. Like Joma Shop was take the Watchbox quote and drop it by $1,500. And that's where they were at. So those were all the quotes I had. I think, I did also reach out to Federico, but on a lot of these, or Delray Watch, excuse me, he hosts Federico is the owner. He hosts a YouTube channel. But a lot of these places will ask you to put in the amount you're interested in initially. And so I put in what I was trying to sell it for on Chrono at the time. And he just said we were too far apart to bother with coming back with another quote, which is fair enough. So anyway, so Crown and Caliber, I was like, oh, wow, they're offering quite a bit more. They were actually pretty close to where I wanted to sell the watch at, like within $100 or so. But because that was automated and all the other people who contacted me had emailed me directly and had like looked at my photos and known that there was a scuff on the watch, I was like, Crown and Caliber, I'm sure is going to shave this down because I had visible scratch damage on the watch, and they used an automated tool to come up with the pricing, which didn't know that. Like it couldn't really factor that in. So I was like, it just made me a little. I didn't want to send the watch in and then have them strip down hundreds of dollars off of it. It would have, because then you have to decide if you want to get it back. But that's where that ties into this. So some people have that happen to them, which all the companies can do that. They're all very upfront about it. But you're allowed to say no, and then they, at their expense, ship you your watch back. And so there were also claims that in the case of Crown and Caliber, that the shipping is really, really slow sometimes getting those watches back. Again, these are all allegations. I haven't seen the company address these sort of things. When I saw this post on Facebook, there was in that comment section some discussion about people also commenting on the Instagram of Crown and Caliber. And it was on a Cartier Santos picture that they had up. I did go and I checked that out. And I did see there were, like, it was like 4 comments. But again, Friday morning, I got up. I thought I'd pull screen grabs to work on a video talking about the subject. And Crown and Caliber's Instagram moderators purged all of those. And that is a little more, I get it. You don't want criticism. I totally understand a rival Facebook group site saying, you know what, we're not going to be throwing our competitor under the bus on our Facebook group because it's going to look really bad. It's going to look petty. But obviously, when it comes to a company managing their own social media and they just start purging criticism, if it gets around, because obviously it results in people like me talking about it, because I'm like, why'd you delete the comments instead of ignoring them or responding to them? A lot of people would say ideally you would respond to them. So that's one little piece of Crown and Caliber, but that's not really the main thing. When I say issues in the title of this live stream, Crown and Caliber issues, I'm more interested in knowing, so is it just being phased out? Like, what's Hodinkee? As I mentioned at the start of the video, Hodinkee owns Crown and Caliber. They bought it. And there are aspects to this that have confused me for a really long time. Like, if you go to Hodinkee, they have a shop on Hodinkee's site and it sells watches. And Crown and Caliber doesn't have, to my knowledge, last I looked, I couldn't find readily visible Hodinkee branding on the Crown and Caliber site, but it also sells watches. It sells a lot of watches. So what's the difference? Like, I think I read online somewhere, I don't remember where it was, Watch You Seek or a comment section or what, I don't remember anymore, but that Hodinkee through the Hodinkee site is more associated with vintage watches, and Crown and Caliber is the more typical sort of modern watches that most of the secondhand dealers sell. Maybe that's true, but I still think it's kind of like, I get maybe diversification. Obviously, Hodinkee has years ago stepped away from being a journalistic site and is selling a lot of products now. And they have commingled the idea of being watch journalists with actually being business people selling watches. And I think it's fine to be a content creator. Hit the mic. I think it's fine to be a content creator and also be a salesperson, as long as you're really transparent about it. When you start presenting yourself as a place that does reviews and things, a journalist, we all have different philosophies on it. I don't really care for that behavior. Like, I think it's too suspect. But obviously, there are YouTube channels that have made their entire business model around doing things like that. It doesn't have to be as fancy pants as owning Crown and Caliber. We're getting to the realms of where you take in watches and you get to sell them after you review them. I mean, that's not journalism, but obviously it's a way many people would only be able to afford to do it. So I understand why there are channels that do it that way. It's a weird, it puts it in a weird place where you can never really trust, is the thing. And I have this on, it happens in all hobbies. So I have this in pinball. Like, I do a podcast with someone who is also a pinball distributor. And so he has a YouTube channel, and he does to this day continue to do pinball reviews, including reviews of machines he sells. There are people that will not trust his reviews because he sells those games. And it's an understandable reaction, no matter how fair he might try and be. That cloud will always hang over it. But I mentioned, like, I'm wondering about the phase out because it's not just about the sales side. So far, like, the Hodinkee shop and the Crown and Caliber shop remain in their own little buckets and they operate as their own little things. The other thing is the Crown and Caliber YouTube channel. Now, this channel is dead now, and I do not understand it unless the plan is to do a phase out. So Crown and Caliber has over 100,000 subscribers. Now, that's not a huge YouTube channel, but in the wristwatch space, that's big. So, I mean, obviously my channel is tiny, but most of the even relatively well-known YouTubers that do watches are under 100,000. At least the ones I watch are often under 100,000. There are only a few that are more. And I mean, I'm trying to think of, I don't know if there's any wristwatch focused channel that's at 1 million. There are a couple that are close, but so just to give you, context again, most of it's a niche hobby. It's not pinball niche, but it's a niche hobby. But as you can see here, this Polaris video, I like this hidden gem series. I thought it was really neat. They haven't done one in 9 months. There's not a video announcing that they've stopped. There's not, I don't think I've seen these individuals, these hosts that we used to enjoy on Crown and Caliber over on Hodinkee's video side. I don't know what's happened to any of them. Now they may have said something on their personal social medias, but I don't follow any of these individuals. I just follow, I'm in my incognito window, but I do follow this channel. But there's nothing here. There's nothing that says what's going on. And it's a big channel. Now, I thought maybe they might migrate all of the production stuff to the Hodinkee channel, right? So Hodinkee's channel is bigger. Hodinkee's I think more closer to 350,000 subscribers. So I could see the argument that they don't need the Crown and Caliber channel. The Hodinkee channel on YouTube is much bigger. So let's go ahead and just use that channel for video content creation. But again, we had a different set of content creators. And if you were going to truly roll it in, then I would have assumed that these individuals that we see on this screen, well, we're only really seeing one individual. Obviously, there's one here referencing the Hodinkee aspect. It says coming soon, but I guess maybe it was coming soon on the radio thing. But these faces that I knew from the Crown and Caliber stuff, they're gone. At least to my knowledge, they're gone. And if they've jumped over somewhere else, I don't regularly watch all the Hodinkee stuff, but if we were to go ahead and go to Hodinkee on YouTube, let's take a look. So it's 354,000 subscribers. And these faces are not the faces of a lot of wrist shots. Wow. I mean, wow. I mean, even their YouTube stuff. I mean, Jack's gone over to Watchbox now. So again, I've scrolled down a bit. We're 4 months down, but I don't know what exactly is. It looks like they're doing a bunch of spec sheet shots now instead of doing their old content. And again, maybe they've lost their content teams. I don't know, but I thought it was strange that they didn't continue the Crown and Caliber content creation on YouTube. They haven't shut everything down. Crown and Caliber Instagram still posts, but those are photos. And FYI, putting a photo out on social media is a lot easier than doing an edited YouTube video. Honestly, it's easier than doing a live stream. So I mean, I don't know exactly what's going on with that brand, but I just thought it looks like something's up with Crown and Caliber, and people have been starting to complain more about them on the business side of things. Crown and Caliber, for a while, I had read, this was back a few months ago, had quit buying watches. They would allow you to do trade-ins for store credit, but outright purchasing where they would send you cash was discontinued. I didn't think that was an atypical or unusual step, given what we've seen happen in the watch market and the collapse of the hype watches, which, as many of you know, March 2022 was kind of like the peak of many of these watches. Some of them peaked in April. But most of the hype watches after that have fallen. And in fact, they've fallen hard. And I don't know if that's just because of concerns about the economy. There are always been reports that I've read that crypto bros were big time into watches, and obviously that's a wasteland now, or I guess they call it a winter. But regardless, a lot of people have lost a lot of money that were playing that game, and so the money for watches has dried up in a large part. If that was really where a lot of the hype watches were being purchased from, I think just general economic conditions and inflation have resulted in a lot of people really pulling back on watch purchases. So anyway, regardless, their suspension of cash payments and buying watches, given they have a large inventory, not particularly surprising. I think I read a comment, again, alleged, not confirmed, that Hodinkee and Crown and Caliber are like valued at $100 million. A lot of that's got to be inventory, but regardless, that they are now doing purchases again. So, I don't know. I don't know what's going on, but there do seem to be some issues, and I don't know if that's Hodinkee and all the disruption with they've had a lot of their content creators turnover. The Crown and Caliber content creators are nowhere to be seen. Um, Obviously, the shops aren't. I'm just going to base this off of what we've seen happening across the board on the gray market, and the backpack slingers and all of that who are selling watches. They're not doing well. So watch sales, if that was what was driving a lot of the income, a lot of these companies might feel like they're bloated on staff now, and they're taking steps to survive. And I'm not saying they're in a dire situation, but obviously you want to plan ahead and look at, like, what's your cash reserves look like, and what are we doing, and what actually generates us income. And as I noted, like, even Hodinkee's channel is under 400,000 subscribers. Ad revenue isn't keeping that business afloat, right? They're making their money in other ways. So maybe that's just part of it. And given the disruption in the industry with the changes on the who is working on the editorial side of these things, I mean, it's not unusual for watch selling companies to have an editorial side. I didn't know that was common, but clearly Hodinkee does it with their whole YouTube channel and the talking watches, and all that. And they're a little different because it felt like they were about that, and then they moved into watch selling. But I'm sure watch selling is the bigger side of the business now. Then you've got like Tim Masso over with Watchbox, and now Jack Forrester. Again, they deliver a lot of really good content. The Watchfinder, the talking hands guy, very, very iconic for going and getting a lot of really nice macro photography, macro video of watches. I mean, people turn to these watch sellers for at least good views of the watches. And Watchbox and Watchfinder both provide that in spades. Some of the other watch company, like Swiss Watch Expo, will even do some stuff like that too. I don't know them as well for it. I don't think they do as good of a job of it, but they do provide it. So anyway, that's all I really wanted to talk about on this brief Saturday stream, because I wasn't planning to do a pre-recorded after I ditched the idea of releasing the Crown and Caliber one. It's a little too spurious and alleged to my liking. I thought I'd go ahead and just do a little brief live stream. And I actually am having guests over today, so I need to get back to cleaning the house. So I will just say take care, everybody, and I'll talk to you next time.